So welcome and thanks for joining our fire response and recovery webinar. I know this is a big topic for everyone on the West Coast right now. So we hope this is of value to you. Let's go ahead and get started. My name is James Forrest. I am the program coordinator for Norcal PTAC. That's the Northern California Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which is a bit of a mouthful. Christina Jones is our presenter for today. She is our very own senior lead procurement specialist with Norcal PTAC, and she's quite an expert on this topic. So you've come to the right place. We are going to get started with the presentation soon, but I do want to share some valuable information on PTAC and the services that we offer. So Norcal PTAC, we are a nonprofit program. We're set up to assist small businesses to help them achieve success in the government contracting marketplace. We're funded primarily by the Defense Logistics Agency, that's the federal government. We also get funding from other state and local sources. We provide all of our services to the public for free at no cost at all because of this grant funding. So that's good news for you who've come here. We're hosted by the Humboldt State University Sponsored Programs Foundation up in Arcata. If you can see that red star in Humboldt County, that's where we are. Last year, Norcal PTAC actually helped our clients win more than $268 million in government contracts, which is quite a bit for our NorCal region. So the way we do this is with three basic core services. The first is one-on-one counseling. Procurement specialists can help you individually with just about any government contracting topic you can think of. So if your business is located in one of these counties, you can see the counties in green on our map here. We have 15 of them. If your business is headquartered and located there, you can apply for services and we can meet you via phone, video conference to walk you through many of the processes to sell your goods and services to the government. Second thing we offer are these regular in-person and virtual workshops like this one on government contracting topics. For obvious reasons, the in-person workshops are on hold for now. Let me get back to the main slide. These can be accessed by anybody. So you don't need to be a client. You don't need to live even in California for these. It's totally available to anyone. So hopefully some of you have joined from out of our area and are able to get something out of this. You can find all of our upcoming events at norcalptac.org/calendar. That's also where you sign up to be a client. So you can see our website there. Third thing we offer is this nifty service called bid matching service. And what this does is you'll set it up with one of your procurement specialists if you're a client, and it will set you up with daily access to federal, state, and even local prime contractor opportunities. So you'll set up some criteria, and then you'll be notified when a bid request is posted that matches those criteria. So it's quite a value to you. It's going to help you stay on top of your opportunities if you're a client with us. So the long and the short of it is if your business is in one of these counties, go ahead and apply. Look for that red Apply Now button on our homepage. Fill out steps 1 through 7 and hit save. If you've ever worked with a small business development center, that's a SBDC in our region before, go ahead and email me at info@norcalptac.org and I'll send you a special link to apply. There's a little bit of an extra step there. And just a note, I know I'm talking about this 15 county service area of ours, but we are just one of 90 PTACs nationwide. So if you're not in one of these counties, go ahead and look up your local PTAC at aptac-us, find a PTAC. You can just type in find a PTAC into your web browser. It'll come up. And you can find other PTACs that offer the same services. Speaking of which, today is actually National PTAC Day. Sorry if that noise is, there's construction happening outside. Today is National PTAC Day. This is a national celebration campaign celebrating the contracting successes of tens of thousands of small businesses who have benefited from assistance from their local PTACs. So we're far from alone in helping out our clients. In 2019 alone, the network of 90 PTACs served over 54,000 clients and helped them win $28 billion in government contracts and subcontracts. So we're happy to be helping funnel this money into the pockets of small business owners like you. And one more plug here, right after this webinar today at 11, if you can make it, there is a National PTAC Day webinar on government contracting top tips. So this should be pretty good. It is at 11 o'clock. I've written out the website there. Maybe I'll also put it in the chat. But if you search PTAC Day Webinar Government Contractor Top Tips or something like that, it should come up. The website is aptac-us.org. Okay, I believe that is all I have to say about PTACs, and now it's time for Christina Jones, who again is our expert on this topic and our senior lead procurement specialist, to take it over. Thanks so much, Christina. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, James. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to go back a slide. It's not allowing me to do that. Okay, I just want to start with our disclosure slide, especially because, as we know, the fires are active in some cases, or, still, in the recovery phase. So this information is dynamic. It's constantly changing. So this is accurate to the point that I know it of research that I conducted just a few days ago, but there may be a few facts that have changed within the past couple of days. Okay, so let's get started. So our agenda here today is to get you familiar with what's required for fire and rescue recovery efforts. So as you know, the fires are, still very much in flux. There are some that they're already in the process of doing the recovery and cleanup, but there are many others that aren't at that stage yet. So we want to talk about how we can be ready when that time comes, or if we have to get ready for the next season, which we need to do as well, what we need to do there. So we'll talk about how to prepare and find opportunities, and a little bit of discussion about working with prime contractors, because they are heavily involved with helping the recovery efforts, working with the Army Corps of Engineers. So some of you who in the past have worked on fires or worked under these last year's fires may be familiar with that. And then we'll just talk about some resources and tips. So here's a snapshot, again, as of a couple of days ago, well, I think this is as of yesterday, of what's going on with the current California wildfires. We know that there are wildfires in other states, and that there's smoke even going up to New York, apparently. But this is just a capture of what's going on here in California. And what I've captured actually on the screen here is a lot of what's going on in our particular service area in Northern Cal, which a lot of the largest fires are located. So you can kind of see where you could track like where the incident is as far as containment. These fires here that I've captured are all in Northern California. And just to note, I did this presentation last year at the beginning of 2019, and these are now a part of the top 20 for this year, largest California wildfires to date. So there's obviously a lot of activity, which I'm sure a lot of you already know. So first thing, getting started. So you may, I've had, clients call me and say they've received calls from different companies saying they can help them participate in the effort, and just be aware of scams that may be out there. Think twice, as it says here, before registering with any privately operated companies, except for instance, prime contractors who may be, already contracted, of course, on the fire, then that's a different situation. But those who are just out there as consultants soliciting you to perhaps say they're going to get you on the fire, just be, cognizant of whether or not that is a real opportunity or not. FEMA nor SAM charges a registration fee. If you're a PTAC client, you already know that we help with SAM registration for free. FEMA also does not charge a fee. So I've had clients also mention that companies have contacted them regarding getting registered with FEMA. So we'll talk about what that requires as we move through the slides. So basically you can read what's here, but the biggest thing I want to note is that when in doubt, contact your local PTAC. We can always help you, even if you're a client, with a quick email. Hey, does this look to be legitimate? Or, of course, schedule a session or sign up for services, of course, with your local PTAC if it's not us. So we're going to talk about a couple of ways to support the effort. Of course, number one is volunteer and donate. So those of you that may be interested, of course, the main purpose of this webinar today is to talk about contracting opportunities, but there are also some that may be interested in volunteering and donating to the fire recovery effort. So these are ways that you can do that. So there are wildfire shelter response locations in most of the counties, and they offer specific opportunities. For instance, a lot of these are tied back to volunteer match, but they also have on their actual website different ways that you can assist. Donations a lot come through. If you click on any of these links here, for instance, FEMA is asking for, cash donations versus goods. A lot of that is because just they are, it's easier to put the cash towards the right, effort that's needed under the recovery. So if you join this hashtag Californians for All, or if you click on that, these links that you see here are active. So when you receive the slides, you should be able to click on the link and go right to those sites to, kind of look at what opportunities are out there, what's required, and what is, again, type of positions are available. So number two, which will be the main focus of our presentation today, is contract support. So you can provide contract support at the federal, state, local, subcontracting level. And we'll talk about ways to support the effort. So you may have already, have contracted with the federal government before. There are some specific things when you're contracting on fire that we'll talk about a little bit different. And then subcontracting, like I say, there are some very large primes out there that will be looking for subcontractors, so how to get ready for that. So first up, we're going to talk about federal. And before we talk about anything with government contracting, I always like to start with the rules. The rules are what's going to guide you on what you can and cannot do and what the government can or cannot do. So they're there. The Federal Acquisition Regulation is there to protect you and the government. So this FAR Part 26, but the subpart 26.201-1 speaks to local area set-asides and basically says that preferences can be given or may be given through a local area set-aside. So say, for instance, you're in Sonoma County, this preference would possibly apply to set that contract need aside for those only in the county. So this says may, not must. So just remember that. So when it's, also remember, as it mentions here, so that means when it's feasible and it makes sense, basically, to do. So sometimes, obviously, in emergency situations, we need to bring in someone to handle this right away. And we don't have time to kind of set it aside for local firms, but there are a lot of opportunities there. And then also something that also works in your favor as a local business is an evaluation preference. So the contracting officer may use an evaluation preference, meaning prefer you because you, for instance, do business and maybe your business work is located in a particular county. So the contracting officer can implement FAR regulations within the contract to give you a preference over someone that's out of the area. And 6208 of that subpart 26.201 just speaks a little more in detail about the statutory requirements that contractor officers may set aside, again, like we talked about, but just goes into a little bit more detail as far as they're not required to justify or have determinations to make findings. This is just what they can do in an effort to move this along quickly, of course, because it's a disaster or an emergency. So just more on that. Again, these are good to know and also be familiar with and watch out for when you do receive a contract opportunity to know what, again, the government can do and what it is that you can do and how it benefits you or how it may hinder you. So, and these are some of the particular FAR rulings they can implement, A, B, and C. So if you look at, for instance, B offers are solicited only from businesses residing in or primarily doing business in a certain area. So if you see 52.226-4, you know that is where they're only, you have to be in that area in order to compete. So those are just, again, some clauses they may include, not required, but they may include, and it's to their benefit to work with local businesses. Now, we'll talk about, here's some other incentive for the government to do business with local business and small business. So anyone who has done business with the federal government knows that they have goals. So they have a 23% goal with small business, and they also have between 3 and 5%, depending on whether it's woman-owned, veteran-owned, hub-zone, and so forth. So with that, every time they set aside or they contract with one of those different socioeconomic categories, they can check off one mark that, yes, I assigned this particular contract to this small business. So with the goal and credit under the Disaster Act, they are able to claim that business twice, so double credit. So again, this benefits them, another incentive for them to do business with small businesses. And then effective 2019, this was put in place, also part of the RISE Act, but an amendment, that they may set aside solicitations for emergency response contracts to allow only small businesses located in the area. So this is just puts it in the RISE Act. We also looked at the last slide with the clause where they also may do that. But all of this, again, is leading towards working with local small businesses. Okay, so one of the ways that under the federal government they can contract under the recovery efforts is through VIPER. So this is a virtual incident procurement system, and it's, for those of you who aren't familiar, and these are blanket purchase agreements, which is one type of contract vehicle that the government may use. So this is a system that was developed in 2007 to basically create an acquisition cycle for putting in place equipment so it's ready to go, and sometimes services, but there are fire-related services, so they're ready to go when fire season comes up. But I want to mention that on the USDA site currently, they are looking at fire season as fire year, because there's so many fires, and obviously, and it just seems like an ongoing cycle, especially over the past several years. So it's important to get registered and listed on a VIPER contract if you have equipment that they can use for the fire. But also know, and we'll talk about a little bit later, if you're not actually able to get on one of these agreements, there's also the emergency equipment rental agreements as well that you may be able to have an opportunity if you're not on the VIPER contract yet. So like I say here, it's too late to get registered for the current VIPER season, for the current fire season under VIPER. But, the 2021 registration is coming soon in a few months, and we at the PTAC can, of course, help you navigate how to walk through that system. And I'm not sure, we may have a webinar also to just go through the steps on how to get on the VIPER incident procurement system. So the first step before you're even able actually to register on VIPER is to get registered with SAM, the Systems for Award Management. So if you're already a federal contractor or wanting to do business with the federal government, you're likely already registered here. If not, the first step before you can actually register on SAM, you have to go back one step and get a DUNS number if you don't have it. The link here will link you directly to get a DUNS number from Dun & Bradstreet's website. Also, you can reach out to us directly, and we can help you get a DUNS number pretty much on the spot during a session. So make sure that you get registered on SAM, and also that your registration, if you register on SAM, if you haven't looked at it in a while, make sure that it's active. You didn't miss the renewal, because if your SAM registration is not active, then you won't be eligible for federal contracting. So make sure you have a tax ID number if you're a sole proprietor. You can still have a tax ID number. Some of companies haven't done it yet, but here's how I'll link directly to apply for EIN online with the IRS if you need to do that. This is just a snapshot of SAM registration. You can create an account here, register here where it's circled. So this will just kind of be like a visual when you receive the slides. But again, the PTAC can also walk you through this process pretty easily. You'll register as a new entity if you are, in fact, a new entity, or maybe you need to update your registration as an existing entity if your registration is expired or you need to make changes. So this is one of the most important things as it relates to disasters. About halfway in, you'll see this page, which is that disaster registry page. So you want to make sure that you do check off that you want to be included in the disaster response registry. This is what FEMA uses. So there was a time a year or so back where FEMA had their own registration process separate, but they have moved into using SAM registration as, you know, as confirmation of those who want to be considered on disaster response recovery efforts. So make sure that you're registered here and that you know, you check off all the appropriate areas if you require bonding and so forth. Also, if you look there at the bottom, if you are willing to serve any state, one state, or multiple states will include 3 states. So just consider, you know, whether or not you're willing to truly travel, you know, across the country in order to contract on a disaster. And also within your SAM registration, there is an opportunity to update your SBA profile. So small business specialists with the federal government search this site when they're looking for small businesses in a certain area or have a certain skill set in order to contract with them on, you know, something that's needed. Even more so, of course, in a disaster. So you want to make sure that your SBA profile is updated. You can access this outside of SAM, but if you are in within SAM completing your registration, make sure you just click on this link here where I have the red arrow, SBA profile. It'll take you to another page. So some of the information will automatically pre-populate. So your DUNS number will come over, your company basic information, but what won't come over is keywords. You need to add keywords. So imagine a small business buyer in here searching under the keyword fire, for instance, or, you know, debris removal or something like that. You want to make sure you have the keywords in here where they can find you for the services that you provide. So make sure you update that. There are a couple of other things as far as choosing your primary NAICS code, also including references. So make sure that you do not skip this step and you complete this. So the FEMA vendor profile form is still available, but it is not what FEMA uses in order to find companies that want to be listed as, you know, participating for fire recovery efforts. This is what they use for market research. So you can submit it, it's optional. They're kind of just looking to see what types of companies are out there that can offer services. For instance, what kind of small businesses are typically offering these services, whether and what socioeconomic category they may be in. So again, they're using it for research. I think it's a good thing to do, but just, you know, wanted to advise you not to expect a response based on this or consider this as a requirement in order to do business with FEMA. So other things that you can do are follow DHS's acquisition forecasts. So all agencies, or most, I should say, have a forecast. So a forecast of what they intend to buy over maybe 5 years. So look at that acquisition forecast. Sometimes they will list, you know, different agencies may list this differently. But a lot of times what you'll see is the agency name, you know, the NAICS code that applies, maybe if they're intending to set it aside for a particular socioeconomic category, when they tend to procure it, and also, you know, roughly what they expect the contract award amount to be. So make sure that you follow this as well as far as looking for opportunities, as again, as the USDA site says, you know, fire season or fire year seems to be here year round. So pay close attention to this. Somewhere else you can register if you have products primarily. If you're familiar or if you registered before with FedBid, FedBid is now Unison. It has been, I think, for over a year, Unison Marketplace. So, for example, when there were disasters in Puerto Rico, there were purchases of water primarily coming through Unison. So it's something, if you have products that can help with the fire, that you want to definitely get registered here. Make sure when you're completing your SAM registration that you indicate that you will accept credit cards. I have companies say that, well, I don't really take credit cards, but there's so many different avenues to take credit cards nowadays through your QuickBooks and different ways that you can take credit cards. So I'm sure that you will take a credit card if the government's offering you a contract. So something to consider, and make sure that you check off. So, and connecting with primes and local firms for subcontracting opportunities. So make sure that you keep your ear to the ground as far as who's got what. We'll talk a little bit as I move through the slides about researching and research that I have done as far as, you know, who are some of the primes that you may want to reach out to. And just remember that, of course, primes are, you know, private companies, so they may do business slightly differently. That means that you need to go to their website, maybe follow up with their particular supplier diversity person if they have someone in place, to find out how they contract and how they would like to do business with you. A while back, a lot of primes had, you know, held their own, like, it's matchmaking, not necessarily matchmaking, but more like outreach sessions. So I don't see as many with, you know, COVID-19 virtual sessions going on that way, but keep an eye out for that if primes are holding any virtual outreach, for instance, about disaster recovery, or any way to get in if you have a product or service, excuse me, that they offer, that they need, any way to make a connection with them. So here's some ways that you can conduct research. So this first one, GovSpin, applies to the Norcal PTAC. So other PTACs may also subscribe to this, but they may have other systems that they subscribe to. So this is basically a private company that we subscribe to conduct detailed research. And what I really like about it is that it really digs down on a lot of the local opportunities. For instance, outside of even just fire recovery, like school districts and things that don't seem to be captured on, like CalEProcure, if you ever done any research there. So consider, if you're a client, are you going to become a client, particularly with the Norcal PTAC, asking your counselor that you're assigned to conduct some research with you on GovSpin. So also you can review these other two sites, USA Spending and Federal Procurement Data System. Again, we're talking about federal opportunities. These are, you know, sites that anyone can view. And Federal Procurement Data System is the real-time, you know, entry of contract information. So if a contract's issued and the contracting officer, you know, after it's signed and executed, they enter it into the system. Federal Procurement Data System is where they are entering that. USA Spending has the same information as Federal Procurement Data System, except it's updated every 30 days, but it's also a lot more user-friendly. So both, though, are very, very useful. It just depends if you're, you know, new to government contracting and research. You may want to start on USA Spending because it's just a lot easier for you to decipher, enter, you know, some basic information and get a listing. So research, again, is really important to any government contracting, and the same goes here with disaster recovery. It's important to do your research. So here's some research I did, and this is on the top FEMA prime contractors. So I conducted this on Federal Procurement Data System, which actually these reports are going to be going away and moving over to the beta.sam.gov. So I think it was saying at the time I was running this 37 more days before it's going to be moving over. So I'm more familiar with this. I'll have to get familiar with that. But basically, I just ran FEMA, obviously 2020, and just see what the top vendors were for FEMA. So not all of these may be working in, for instance, the Norcal area, but again, for those who are listening who may be all over the country, these are just the top, 10 or so FEMA contractors. Of course, you can continue down the list, not just what's highlighted. And if you take a look at this list and just started some research there, like what type of contracts did Parkdale Advanced Materials have? And, who were they with? How recently did they have contracts? You can kind of just use this as a high level listing of those companies and then drill down through USA Spending or Federal Procurement Data System on particular companies. You can also look at these companies, again, like I said, they are private companies, at their websites to see if they have any supplier diversity person or any type of vendor portal to register. And a lot of times on those portals, they'll tell you the types of things that they procure from subcontractors. So this is just showing you, like as a case study, just some research that you can do and how it can help you as far as, mapping out how you want to find primes to connect with. Okay, so let's talk about state and local disaster recovery. So federal grants, even like grants to FEMA or so, make up half of what the agency's budget is in most cases. So they receive grants for disaster recovery, and then that trickles down to the cities, the counties at the state level to help out. Not all for contracting, a lot, of course, for helping those, people that are in distress, that may need, cleanup of their property, or obviously just helping them get out of those the fire situations. So all of that, when we see the recovery going on real time, a lot of that is from federal grants that's bringing in the folks that are needed to help, on the ground, and also after on the recovery. So 2 important sites that I want you to follow on the state side are the California Office of Emergency Services and also CalRecycle. So California Office of Emergency Services is run by the governor's office, and that office tasks CalRecycle to manage a lot of the debris removal. So if you do, that's a service you provide, debris removal. Definitely you want to keep in contact. And there are other things as well, but it's just a major, I think it's 45% I read the contracts that are needed are under debris removal. Okay, so this is just a snapshot of what Cal OES looks like, the governor's site, and it tracks current incidents, past incidents, and general information. And there's also a link from CalRecycle that I have here to keep up with debris cleanup projects. But on that site currently, it only lists Butte County, but it has been updated. I'm trying to see what day that was. I would say a couple of weeks ago. I know it was a couple of weeks ago that the president issued an order where these other counties were added. So although it's not listed on the website here, that this link, there is an order out there on FEMA's website that lists Lake, Monterey, Santa Cruz, Solano, and Sonoma as additional counties that CalRecycle is tasked to run this program for debris removal. So stay informed. CalRecycle, has a wildfire again debris removal program I was just talking about. Here's a link to emergency debris recovery contracts. So what you subscribe to this, and it'll just send you, if anything comes up, it'll automatically notify you through your email when anything comes up. So, and it's really simple. It's just first, last name, primary contact, email. It's really easy to sign up for this. So if nothing else you get from this, sign up for that so you can be notified if something comes out. So there are 2 phases. There is phase 1, which is the household hazardous waste removal. And like I mentioned, there are a lot of grants. A lot of that money too is going towards this, helping, people who need help with removing waste just under the programs that are available for free through the grants. So of course there's a large effort that's going on currently with disasters that have occurred in the past. There are some that have been wrapped up recently, and then there's some things, of course, that are still in flux, and we haven't even gotten to phase 1. Phase 2 is a debris removal, which, you know, I've been talking about the last couple of slides. This will tell you what types of things that they want to remove, what type of assessments needs to be done. So environmental firms are also very much so involved, you know, assessing the site. So those may be some of the prime contractors that you may want to connect with, environmental firms who, you know, may be needed out here to, you know, assess the different structures, the debris, and so forth. And then if you're actually removing debris, of course, again, you know, look at the types of things that need to be removed. Make sure you meet the qualifications as far as equipment and so forth, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the next few slides. So here's the contract search. I just did a screenshot of this, and there wasn't anything that's currently listed, but again, a lot of different fires are still going on or not really fully contained, so they're not at this level yet. But the last thing was a tree removal for the Calfire, and there was an intent to award. So what I found, and also why it's good to track these type of things, is because I noticed a couple of companies, large companies, that were awarded for this, and I just made a note of there was Arcadis USA, which is a large company, won a $33 million contract with Cal Recycle for tree removal. So that may be, again, an opportunity for you. Of course, it's already going to be awarded, but already has been awarded really at this point. But maybe an opportunity for subcontracts with you if you provide tree removal or something that supports that. So definitely follow this site as well. Look at what's been awarded, who's it been awarded to. There may be other things that aren't listed here. By just identifying those company names and then going out and conducting additional research, maybe on their website or through you know, the portals, which is Cal eProcure, or for state, or for federal government, USA Spending, or Federal Procurement Data System, you may discover other opportunities. So even though it's awarded, don't be discouraged. Look and see what other opportunities could come out of this. So Calfire, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar or constantly hear about Calfire on the ground if you're in California. So there are many ways to get involved. Hired equipment list. So the hired equipment list is similar to, you know, Viper, and actually Calfire and the U.S. Forest Service work hand in hand. So the hired equipment list is basically like, imagine like a Viper system where you're listing, they are pre-approving your equipment, they're checking it out to make sure it'll meet the guidelines of what's required for the fire. And so that includes inspection, and, you know, there's some forms and certifications and things that you need to fill out. So those are what's needed to get on the hired equipment list. So they used to post this list out there so you could see, you know, who's on the list, and maybe you could contact them. But recently I've noticed that the list is taken down. So it just says that the hired equipment list has been removed, and, you know, but it's already basically in flux. So with disasters, as you know, they need to have these things in place prior. So they're going to that list, and I'm not sure what order, because before you could see like who's at the top of the list to be called. But just know that that's available, and that we can also help you with filling out what's required or deciphering the requirements on how to get on the hired equipment list. So you can look at, and I think I have a slide after this, posted bid opportunities on Cal eProcure, and just see, you know, what's available, and also locally as well. So if you sign up with us for services with PTAC, or you're already a client, make sure you get signed up for our bid match, or if you're on bid match, that you definitely look at it, and perhaps go back to your counselor and get it edited if you have not included some of the keywords that will be required for fire recovery. So just consider that, because our bid match system will search federal, state, local, cities, and counties. So it's just a blanket and it's free, to make sure that you're picking up things that are out there that you may not find on your own. So Calfire has the contact numbers for the hired equipment. So I just posted these here so you can know who you could contact regarding, this not exactly who's on the list, but just what counties and who's the contact for that. So they are making some allowances due to COVID-19, and what that is if you're already on a list and maybe you need something that's to be inspected, but they inspected it last year, they will extend it for a year because of COVID-19. So that's just an accommodation, because of the current climate. The emergency equipment rental agreement. So this is where, if you're not on any of these lists, for instance, you're just finding out about this today, but you do offer something that, can be used in the fire. You still need to have inspections. You still need to make sure your equipment is safe. But there is an emergency equipment rental agreement, which would come into play a lot of times after they've, reviewed their current list, like whoever is already on the hired equipment list. So it's another way that you can potentially get involved. But again, you have to make sure you're able to meet the minimum requirements, and we can talk with you about what those requirements are if you have questions, what's needed. Also, you can go to, I'm trying to think of, basically the board that basically oversees this. I can't think of the name of it at the moment, but you can look at what the requirements are, and then we can also, again, walk you through those forms and what's needed to see if you can get on this emergency equipment rental agreement. I also did talk to someone from the Forest Service that said yes, because I asked specifically if they're going to be using companies that are not already on the list. And the short answer is yes. Of course, again, you need to be, qualified and ready, but they are taking, different regions are capturing this information as far as who can support after they've gone through the list differently. So Region 5, which is the region we're in for Forest Service, is combining with Region 6, which is like the Oregon area, and they are capturing information on their website. They have a link to list your name, what equipment you offer, and so forth. And I'm told within the next fire season, they're going to be combining efforts. So Region 5 and Region 6 will be combining together on their Viper contracts. So these things all kind of going back and forth because they kind of work together, Calfire with Forest Service. So just keep in mind that there may be opportunities out there. Get registered where you can. Of course, get registered on SAM. Definitely do that. And then get registered wherever else you can, and your equipment inspected if it hasn't been done, and find out how that can be done, and we can talk with you one-on-one about how to get connected with those who can inspect your equipment, or whether or not there's a waiver in place. So I just went to Calfire and, Cali Procure, and did a search of Calfire opportunities. So as I mentioned, follow the opportunities. If you search this way using their department number, which is 3540, it'll bring you right to what opportunities are posted currently. You could also look at what's historical. So I have it sorted by posted, it's still out there and active, but you could sort it by historical to see if something closed recently and was awarded to maybe a large contractor or someone that you may want to try to team up with. So important, again, to follow these things. A lot of this will come through bid match if you're signed up with bid match with us, with the PTAC, but sometimes things, they just, for whatever reason, they miss each other. So I always recommend to make sure your Cali Procure notification search is also robust, so that it will catch anything that bid match doesn't catch, and vice versa, to make sure that you're notified. So working with the primes, we talked a little bit about this, identify primes in your local area. Pre-bid meetings, you know, a lot of that will be virtual if they're going on. And, you know, view the attendance list where available. So that's just standard, something that's good to do when you're looking to connect with any prime. Registering as a vendor, as I mentioned, on their website, whatever portal they have to register as a vendor with them, make sure you do that if you're trying to do business with them. Also look for, you know, who is going to be managing these opportunities. So I did, again, research, again, I say is very, very important. You know, noticed a couple of other companies that have already been tasked for debris removal and potentially some other things, large companies. So these primes, at least, no, both of these primes were on previous disasters. One is ECC Constructors, you may be familiar with if you've already, if you were working on the last fires, and the other is Ceres Environmental. So those are just two companies that have already been tasked to conduct debris removal. And we just, a few slides back, looked at the different counties where CalRecycle is tasked to manage the debris removal. That also will work in conjunction with the Army Corps of Engineers. So the Army Corps of Engineers is basically overseeing from the federal side these large primes. And so they will have opportunities for you to subcontract with them. So go to their website. I was able to see ECC has like a questionnaire or something that you need to fill out. And then Ceres Environmental has a link to become a subcontractor. So go to their websites, find out how to register, and, you know, get involved with what's going on the ground or what may be coming up, you know, because a lot of things, like I say, are still in flux and they're not actually doing the cleanup yet. So also local tribes and affiliates. So make sure that you go to this website and see if they're for local tribes and see if there are any opportunities there. And follow all the social media of CAL FIRE, cities, counties impacted, because sometimes they do, you know, a lot of times, especially now because so much is in flux, they post different things, you know, this has changed, this fire is contained, this fire is, you know, new fire. So you can kind of follow what's going on, or other tips. So just, you know, part of making sure that you keep connected with what's real time happening, because even like I say, as we speak now, things are changing. So I've already spoken to you very extensively about registering for our bid match, so make sure that you do that, and with your local PTAC. And again, I do recommend that you register directly, if they allow it, with cities and counties that are impacted, because again, some of these systems, you know, for whatever reason, they may miss something. So if you are really intent on working with, you know, a particular county, just double check and see if they have a registration as well, a free registration. All of these should be free. You shouldn't have to pay for them. If they subscribe to someone, you know, outside of eProcure, if they post their bids somewhere else than that, then they pay that company to post their bids. So you don't need to subscribe to the paid version, just the free version. And that's it for my part of the presentation. I'm going to turn this back to James.
All right. Thank you, Christina. We are going to have a Q&A now. I see a couple of you have already entered your questions into the Q&A window, which is great. We're going to get those in a second. We just want to let you guys know we have lots of upcoming events. You can find all of these on our calendar at norcalptac.org. I'll just zoom through these. We have a cybersecurity one coming up on the 23rd. That's just next week. We have an intro to government contracting for women-owned businesses. We actually have two of those. The first one is on October 1st. Then we have the WOSB, the Woman-Owned Small Business Certification webinar, 11 a.m. October 6th. And then we have two that are sort of remnants of our matchmaking event that we were going to hold before COVID became a thing. One's on October 7th and the other's October 8th, and these are really important skills for networking. So go ahead and take a look at our calendar once again. These are all free. You can join them from anywhere. So it's nice and easy. Okay, let's go next slide and let's take a look at the questions.
Oh, okay.
And if any of you want to cut out at 11 o'clock to go to that other webinar, I did paste the link in the chat, not the Q&A, in the chat. So if you want to take a look at that link and join the tips webinar, you can go ahead and do that. All right, so let's get started here.
Okay.
Magdalena is asking, are the community action agencies the best way to get linked to volunteer match programs?
So I can't say yes or no. Honestly, I'm not following a lot with the volunteer. I'm primarily following the contracting. But when I looked out on Cal OES site, they led you back to volunteer match. Also, FEMA has a link to a separate organization that they work through to provide volunteer services. So I'm not sure about that. I think that would be addressed on their website, volunteer match, excuse me, on Cal OES or FEMA site.
All right, thank you. Magdalena has another question here. What are some examples of private prime contractors working under federal or state contracts?
Okay, I kind of mentioned a couple of during my presentation. So
this might be, I think this question was asked at 10:15, so it may have been.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Why does SAM offer the option to not publicly display your registration?
Because, well, it's public information, so private companies can come out there and solicit you. So some companies don't want it displayed. However, you're limiting yourself, you know, if you do that for instance, an agency to see that you have an active registration. So it's an option. You know, if you're really trying to do business with the federal government, I don't recommend it.
All right. How can we approach the Cal OES with an emergency service we provide that they might not be aware of?
Really, you may try to attend some of the events that they have. So they're hosting some virtual events about fire. So you may, you know, try to connect with someone there. Also, you can contact on their website. They have a list of contacts. It's usually by email that you can reach out to that person and tell them what it is you offer. But mostly, it's really going to go through the process of, you know, they've assigned it to certain services over to Cal Recycle to handle. But, you know, you can try, like I said, through these avenues, but there's not a direct way to approach on any, unless they had an exact listing to say, if you have a new idea, post it here. That would be the only option. Otherwise, it's best to just participate on some of their virtual events.
Thanks, Christina. I'm seeing folks start to enter their questions in the chat window. Please enter them into the Q&A instead. It keeps them all in the same place, and it's in a format that we can use. Michael's asking, is there a cost for bid match?
You can take.
If Michael's talking about with PTAC services,
Mm-hmm.
not if you're a client. It's something that we pay for with grant funding. So. Catherine is asking, we are a company that offers construction management services. Would we register on the same sites the same way as contractors do?
Yes, you would. It's still a service that's needed for fire recovery. So yes.
All right. Dawn is wondering, what are the best ways to search by NAICS codes or other state codes?
So using the Census Bureau is the best way to search for your NAICS codes. Put in any keywords that describe what you do as simplistically as possible so you can capture everything. For fire recovery, they use just really a couple of codes, and they're not very, well, there is one for debris removal, and there's one that's like fire support services or something like that that is used a lot on Viper contracts. So there are a few other codes, but basically make sure that you search as, with, don't use too many keywords together to make sure you capture it. And you might have to look through a long list, but you're more likely to find it. The other thing is regarding state. So California uses the UNSPSC code. It's the United Nations Supplier Product Service Code. And you can search for that on unspsc.org. That's unspsc.org. And same thing, keyword search and look for the codes that are applicable to you that, will correspond with basically what you would use as a NAICS code for the federal.
Sounds good. Okay. Corey Gillerson is asking, with me having one semi-truck for debris removal, what would be the best way for me to team up with a prime?
Well, the first thing is to register with that prime. Register with the prime that is doing debris removal, or perhaps you can team up with another subcontractor to, have a couple of trucks and provide as still one subcontractor to a prime. But the bottom line is you're going to have to register with the prime, and they will let you know if we accept one truck or as if we're looking for, a group of trucks or what it is exactly that we're looking for. But I don't honestly see really anything that will be too different there. You're just going to register with them and tell them what you offer.
All right. Chaz is wondering if there are any incentives or guidelines for developing for county or state equipment procurement that takes into account new solar plus battery hybrid equipment for temporary powering and lighting equipment.
That's a very specific question. I'd have to research that and take that offline. Offhand, I do not know.
And when we have a question like that, you can email me at info@norcalptac.org, and we'll see what we can do for you. How can we get registered for bid match? Can we get an opportunity to contract with you? So you can, if you'd like to become a client of Norcal PTAC, if you're located in our service area, you can put an application on our website, norcalptac.org, hit that red apply now button, and we can connect you with a procurement specialist. You're welcome to request Christina, but you do have to live in one of our 15 counties. Unfortunately, I'll reject your application if you're outside of it. But there's 90 PTACs across the country, so if you can't work with us, you can probably work with another PTAC. So if you're looking for bid matching or other services, go ahead and apply if you're in a service area. Good morning. Just wondering if the PTAC system requires that you register with each office that has a jurisdictional overview of registering. Yeah, we're all independently run. We're funded by the same organization, sort of loosely aggregated, but we do have different intake systems for each PTAC and different protocols for intake. So if you register for one and then you move your business, for instance, you will need to re-register. Michael's asking, you had mentioned a local preference can be applied to a solicitation. Is there a hierarchy as to how preference/incentive are applied?
No, not that I know of.
Nice, sure. Okay, I think we have one last question here from Chaz. How can we approach the Cal OES with an emergency service? We provide the main, I think we already got that one. NAICS codes are not keeping with the new equipment integration. Is there a workaround?
What's it? I'm sorry, I lost. Oh, NAICS codes are not keeping up with new equipment integration and tech equipment. Oh, yeah, NAICS codes are quite antiquated. But what you can do is look and see if, so the NAICS code is going to be the NAICS code, right? So if someone's, for instance, purchasing what you sell, for instance, you know of a competitor that's selling what you sell, and you see that they use this particular NAICS code. If that's what they're using, that's what they're using. But you also want to look at what is the product service code that's listed for that. That's a little bit more specific and drilled down to what they're actually buying. So, you know, the NAICS codes are only updated every couple of years. Last time was 2017, I think. So it's not very may not be as close, and NAICS codes are just broad in general. So it may not be as close to what you provide, but just follow still who is purchasing under that NAICS code, what you sell, and then what product service code are they using also. So think of it more on that side versus finding the perfect NAICS code.
Okay. And I guess we'll throw in one last question here. Someone's asking about how beneficial it is to be 8A certified or HubZone certified to get better opportunities as a sub working with the prime.
Yeah, I mean, it's very beneficial. And that's like a whole nother presentation, but for instance, HubZone and 8A, there are certain things, as I mentioned in the FAR rulings, they can set aside not only for a small business, but for, you know, those who are in certain socioeconomic programs. So if they are, for instance, short on their goals, for instance, with meeting HubZone requirements or 8A requirements, then being small and 8A would also benefit you. Also, primes are always looking for those who are part of those programs because they're able to get access to contracts that they could not otherwise access because they're not allowed to be 8A certified or HubZone because they're not small. So just for that alone, it's beneficial. Are you frozen? Uh-oh. Well, I seem to have lost James. He'll probably pop back in. Let me see if there is.
I'm back as far as I can tell. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
For some reason, Zoom just crashed. It's, yeah,
Okay.
got here. So sorry about that. Did I miss, are we done with the?
Well, there's something on the chat, or is there anything on there that, I know they shouldn't put it there, but is there anything there that you want to address?
Sift through. Yeah, the reason we don't use the chat is because it's hard to sift through to tell what's a comment, what's a question, things like that.
Okay.
Is it possible to make your vendor's services for only limited windows of time, for example, only certain months or limited period of time during any given fire incident?
You need to be available during fire season. Well, I understand that I've kind of spoken about fire year, but you do need to be, you can always decline it, you know what I mean? But you're going to be on that list for the fire season. You know, so the contracts are all set up the same for a particular period of time over a 3-year period, for instance, with Viper, but still only a certain window within each year are they usually calling you for opportunities, but you can decline it.
Okay. I think that's a good place to stop. Thanks everyone for your excellent questions. Thank you for joining our fire response and recovery webinar. Of course, thanks to Christina Jones for all the hard work and research you put into this presentation for everyone's benefit. We're going to cut things off, but want to let you know when you exit this webinar, it's going to redirect you to a page with a URL for a Google form. It's nothing nefarious. It's our satisfaction survey. If you could fill that out, you can do it anonymously if you'd like. It just takes a couple minutes at tops. That would be a huge service to us. Helps us stay funded and improve our webinars, which we like to do. Another reminder that we have been recording this whole time. So the slides in a PDF form, as well as this whole recording, will be posted to our website, and I'll share that link to you guys later today once I get to it, once it all processes. And I believe that's, yeah.
I just want to add one thing, and I believe we're going to have a fire response and recovery. We've already started a webpage. Did we mention that?
I don't think we've mentioned that. Yeah, that's a good thing to mention. So we've been putting together resources which are kind of going to be up all year round on this very topic. So do check out our website. There's a lot of resources there, also for instance, COVID contracting.
And I may post some of these links there that I discussed during the webinar. So
perfect.
Okay.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. And thanks for joining our fire response and recovery webinar. And see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.